Well, good morning, everybody. It's 10 a.m. Pacific time, and we welcome you to a wonderful discussion this morning on supply chain challenges. A terrible subject, but hopefully we'll find some nice analgesic products to fix the problems and the challenges that many of us have been facing. Before we proceed into the program itself, it's always customary for us to introduce and to thank our host for the event. And I want to call upon, I term her the Supreme Commander of the Bath and Beyond and Ferguson in San Francisco, our very good friend, Donalyn Haller. Donalyn, thank you for hosting us today. And please, a couple of opening remarks from you, if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, thank you, Alf. I'm Donalyn Haller. I'm responsible for marketing and events in the Bay Area for Ferguson and the Bath and Beyond and their most recent acquisition, Meyer Appliance, which is down in Mountain View. Our 10 locations in Northern California are showrooms that provide bath, plumbing, lighting, hardware, both from international brands as well as domestic. So I'm going to put my contact information into our chat window so that if you all need any kind of introduction to any of our locations, I can help you out there. But I do look forward to this exciting topic and obviously a very challenging time for all of us, but we're going to navigate this together today. So thank you, Alf. Thank you, panelists, and welcome everybody.
Thank you, Donalyn. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items. We've muted all sound and video, but there is some minute glitch in Zoom where people can still sneak in and come up on screen when we least expect it. So double check your system if your camera is showing that it's unmuted, or please go ahead and mute it and keep an eye out for that if you don't mind. Also, we will be submitting questions through the chat button down the bottom there. If you've got a question, you have a comment, just pop it into the chat button and we'll be happy to address it as we go through the conversation today. And then finally, we will be sending out, we are recording today's event. We'll be sending out a Zoom recording probably late this afternoon or this evening or tomorrow at the absolute latest. So why today's discussion? Very, very simply, I was saying to our panelists before we came on today that I've had 4 dining room chairs on back order since December of last year, and I was advised this week that I'd be lucky to get them before July. And I went through the same process last year in 2021. We were trying to outfit a house and finding the only stuff that was available was a Target. So you get the drift. The supply chain challenges are still there. And what we want to do today is sort of try to understand why it is, where it's happening, and what can we do about it. So that, in essence, is today's discussion. 4 remarkable panelists representing 4 separate sides of the challenge. In alphabetical order, Sandra Eaton, who's the Regional Director for the Western Region for the Compass Development Marketing Group, who will provide the realtor perspective. And Sandra deals very much with the development arm, where realtors are in the development business. So she'll be addressing that particular perspective. Jeff Holt is the principal at the fabulous Hue & Showrooms at the San Francisco Design Center. Jeff knows the Bay Area marketplace inside out and back to front, and he'll give us the designer and the showroom perspective. Greg Lawrence, who's our director of showroom and builder sales for Northern California and Northern Nevada for Ferguson, which is also incidentally the company that owns the Bath and Beyond. And Greg will be able to give us the sort of the distributor and the wholesaler perspective. So we've got that covered. And then finally, John Stark, who's the Senior Vice President of Global Operations for the Primex family of companies out of Chicago. I've had a lengthy conversation with John by phone, and this man understands the global and the sort of the domestic, the national domestic ramifications and where the blockages are at that level. So panelists, to all of you, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here today. Opening question to all 4 panelists, and Jeff, I'll start with you and just sort of give it to us in headline form, if you don't mind. How would you assess the current state of supply chain challenges today? Let's assume where are we? We're at the 29th of March. Where are we? What are we feeling right now, and at what level are we at? Jeff, kick us off.
We are. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Excellent. We are still experiencing longer lead times. I do feel like a veil is lifting a little bit. Things are clearing up. We we had in my industry, we had a huge increase in sales right at a time when our manufacturers were experiencing closures from COVID. So, there's a backlog that we're also experiencing, but I do feel like overall, there is still longer lead times, but it seems to be the shortages and things are more sporadic than they used to be.
Okay, John, from the global and national perspective.
Yeah, so the supply chain at the moment has eased up a little bit in some spots. A lot of it is basically due to the buy-aheads that take place for the Chinese New Year. The expectations are that the global supply chain will be challenged through the end of 22. There are some spots, as mentioned prior, where there's some openings and such, but at the moment, it's still challenging. It's very fluid and changing on a daily basis.
Okay, Greg.
Yeah, I would say the same thing as John as far as the supply chain. I think on the appliance side, we continue to see a strained shipping in appliances ranging from 4 to 10 months, 4 weeks to 10 months. Plumbing's not as bad, lighting, more of a shipping issue. But we really don't see any improvement on the appliance piece, probably coming for at least 2022. End of 2022, beginning of 2023.
Great. Why is appliance? I'm hearing this everywhere. Why is appliance a problem? I mean, a lot of it is made domestically. Why the issues?
Well, I think saying some is made domestically, I think the parts all come in from China. I think there's some supply chain issues. And then during the COVID period, when they would have a COVID breakout in the manufacturing warehouses, then they had to shut down for a week or two in manufacturing. And with the builders continuing to outbuild and outpace what they did the year before, it's just completely difficult to get caught up.
Okay, Sandra, from the real estate point of view.
We're experiencing the same thing. We're still experiencing significant delays in deliveries. And it's headed with appliances, but it's also furnishings. We have models that can't get finished. We still have ships that are sitting outside of the gate, as I mentioned earlier, that have been there since November, that can't even get unloaded. So we're experiencing those significant delays. They're ongoing with FF&E. The pace of sales is not helping. So our developers are really up in arms, and they're reserving the right to replace appliances with an equal or greater value, but with which ones? So yes, we are still experiencing considerable delays.
So this is actually, yes.
Hey, to kind of chime in on what Sandra said,
Please.
part of the issue, we have a lot of issues with, we have distribution centers set up throughout the state and warehousing. A lot of the problem is we're able to get certain items, but we're not able to get refrigeration or double oven. So we have a lot of products sitting, but we cannot complete a house because we don't have all of the pieces. And like Sandra said, we have the flexibility of putting in other brands or upgrading, but those options run out as well.
I was hoping to hear from all four of you that essentially the problems had gone away, and what I'm hearing is that that's not the case at all. I had made a list of the sort of the pressure points on the challenge. I had the blockages at the ports, trucker shortages. The container gets on the dock, but then there's nobody to move it off the dock. A container inventory. Apparently, the stuff's being shipped back empty to China, and they're using it in their part of the world. Raw goods shortages, staffing, just unfilled positions, and then just the exponential growth in online ordering, where everything's now ordered online. With that sort of potpourri of issues, anybody just dive in. Where is the primary challenge? What's the primary pressure point? Anybody?
I'm happy to jump in on
Please.
the safety component. We still have subcontractors, trying to fill those roles, delay all of our building efforts exponentially. And just to highlight that on a personal level, I had a 1-bedroom condominium personally that I was remodeling in San Francisco. It should have taken, I'm going to guess 6 to 7 months. It took 14 months. 14 months because they couldn't even get their subcontractors. And I'm hearing, entire teams are, they're hiring whole new subcontractors to fulfill those empty slots. It's very, very difficult and important shortage for us in the building community.
John, what are you feeling? Where's the pressure point, the major pressure point from your perspective?
Yeah, so I think it's everywhere. Okay, great answer, but it's everywhere. So if you just walk through the value chain from beginning to end a little bit here at a high level, first off, there's a major raw materials shortage. As somebody mentioned earlier, the majority or a lot of components and materials come through China. So there's a chip shortage that's going to affect some of the things on the appliance side. So before you even get to manufacturing, you find that to be lead times on those types of components are anywhere from, they can be up to over 52 weeks. Okay, then you go into the factories, and one thing that wasn't mentioned here is there's still a situation with COVID, in particular in China. Shanghai right now is on a shutdown in China as a result of COVID. Shenzhen was in a shutdown a couple of weeks ago on a result of COVID. And so you have, disruption in the manufacturing side of things, not so much just people, but in the manufacturing side due to COVID continuing. Then you get to the port situation and what's happening. You mentioned there's an imbalance of containers. So, the trade deficit is not favorable these days. And what's happening is we're ordering a lot more into the US and Asia is not ordering the same amount. So clearly you have a lot of containers going empty on the back end. And then you get into the United States and you get into the port situation. Right now, as of yesterday, there's about 69 ships sitting outside of LA, okay, which is one of the second, LA is second largest port in the United States, and Long Beach and LA are 1 and 2. But they're sitting outside of there. And if you kind of get a perspective of that, what that means is every one of those have like 5,000 to 10,000 containers. So you guys can do the math, 69 times 10,000 containers, depending on the size of the ship. One of the challenges that comes out inside of that is not only are those empty containers being shipped backwards empty, but they're also eating up all the warehouse space in the LA ports where you normally have finished goods coming in and then filtering out through the trucks. Then you go to the trucking side, and what you find on the trucking side is a shortage of drivers to haul them across the country. Now, that's not anything new. That's been going on for years and years, but it just gets worse when you have excess demand. I'm going to call it excess demand at this point. Then you've got the inland ports. Now, an inland port, for everybody, definition wise, is like a port in Chicago. And those ports, those types of ports also get congested. At the end of the day, the reason I mention all these things is because no one of those things can be fixed on their own unless everybody else is in sync. And right now, that is one of the difficulties, is syncing up the supply chain from one end to the other, if that makes sense.
John, how long will that take, realistically?
Well, there's a couple of factors here. One is demand versus supply, right? Just simple economics. Demand is starting in general, overall economy in the United States. We're seeing a slowdown of demand. That isn't necessarily the greatest news, but in some respects, it could actually be welcome news, because if we can level the demand and supply, you'll see some of those things breaking up. But again, I would just point to 22 might have some moments of time that look a little better, but overall 22 is still going to be a challenge across all of these different aspects of the global value chain.
Greg and to Jeff and to Sandra, anything to add in terms of the major pressure points for you guys inside your sectors?
For me,
Well,
I would say same thing that John's saying. It's pretty much the same thing, transportation and just product coming in.
Jeff, what about you?
It's all those same things. Most of our manufacturers are domestic, but we do rely on imported goods on some of the things that we do. Transportation the lead time has increased dramatically and the cost has gone way up. But, our challenge really is dealing with high net worth individuals and trying to support our design clients and communicating to people who are used to going to the front of the line and throwing money at things that there's nothing that they can do to speed this up. And so we try to just arm our designers with as much information as possible.
It's our common denominator right now, right?
Right.
Right.
Levels the playing field.
John,
Yes.
let me go back to you. I heard a sort of an apocryphal story last year where you couldn't get appliances because there wasn't any foam to pack them in. And you asked the question, why isn't there any foam in this great United States of America? And they said, oh, well, all the foam is made in Texas. And when the grid went down and when they had whatever they had in Texas, only Texas knows, we had no foam. Is it possible that there are other systemic factors that are contributing to supply chain challenges other than COVID?
Well, that was one for sure. It was the chemical that makes foam. And we sell upholstery, obviously. And there were North Carolina manufacturers who actually just shut down.
Because of
They
that.
didn't have foam, yes. So that really wasn't COVID direct.
Yeah, and I
Right.
don't think that was for the packaging. I think that was more for the installation of the refrigeration, Alf,
Okay.
that they struggled with. Same thing with water heaters. They didn't have the insulation that they needed to make the water heaters.
So let me go back to John. John said, I asked him the question, I said, when will we see the easing of these challenges? And John, if I got you correctly, you sort of indicated end of 22. Yes.
I think everything's foggy these days. We used to be able, all of us, see a lot farther out, but at this point, there's no real relief in sight until early 23. Again, I could be wrong. That's my vision at this particular point with the information I have.
Would you agree with that, Greg?
Yeah, we would hope so, but I think we've been saying that year after year, next year will be better. And unfortunately, we just haven't seen that, but we are hoping that we see some relief in 2023.
Yeah.
Sandra, what are you being told by your suppliers?
Well, our suppliers are still saying the same story. What it does to our industry, it impacts our not only our availability, but our ability to close a home. So that impacts everybody's ROI. The pricing has gone up. And so there's just a very narrow delta between mortgage rates going up, pricing going up, and that's going to create that slowdown that you mentioned earlier, Jeff, potentially, so everyone can catch their breath. So I see opportunities in there, but we're still going to be struggling through this year.
Okay. And Jeff?
But
what are you being told by your manufacturers?
Well, I deal with mostly small manufacturers, and there are micro problems in each one. But we already worked off of pretty long lead times as people perceive them, from 12 to 18 weeks. So we're going out to 27 weeks. So it's not so shocking because designers and their clients know that they're going to have to wait. But I'm just afraid that this is going to become the new normal for us, and that the prices aren't going to come back down on transportation. It's not going to correct itself in that way.
Bite your tongue, Jeff. Bite your tongue right now.
Right.
Say again, Sandra.
We can't even, there are some, I'm hearing that there are some projects where the models can't even be completed. Or maybe a transmitter hasn't been installed, so electricity can't go on at a city level. So they may even be able to have the furniture, but they can't turn the model lights on. So it is so multi-layered.
Right.
Just take a little bit at a time. We may not be able to solve all the problems at once, but just a little bit at a time.
John, back to you. I come back to you because you have a sort of a global perspective on this. Other issues, we've got the war in Ukraine right now, and I heard the other day that Ukraine provides so much of the silica, for instance, for computer chip manufacturing. But are there other global issues let's say COVID is gone tomorrow as a cause. Are there other causes out there that are looming, such as wars, inflation, whatever the case may be?
Yeah, so I'll mention a couple things. First off, your Ukrainian comment is very valid. Okay, number one, it's a fuel issue. We all have been to the gas pump in the last few days and seen what's happened there. That filters all the way into steamship lines and transportation costs, all the way down to resins for plastics and those types of things. So there's going to be a continued inflation level based on what petroleum is used for. You also mentioned chips. It used to be not too many years ago that the United States actually produced 80% of the chips that were required. Now we're down to 20%, and there's about 80% of the chips are provided in basically Taiwan or China. And unfortunately, some of the most sophisticated chips, the newer ones that are used in the automobiles, et cetera, are only produced in China. So there is a bunch of severe situations that will not be short-term in nature that need to be addressed. You've heard that Intel is going to build some factories and those types of things, but that's going to take a period of time for that to take place. So those are just some of the other things that are going on that are challenges outside of just the COVID environment in itself.
Any other perspective, panelists? Anybody else to add to that? Let's get on to the shipping cost issue if we can. And what somebody posed a question a few moments ago: why aren't we relying more upon air freight? Is that just a cost issue? It's too damn expensive to fill those planes from China to here. Greg?
We do have some manufacturers that are shipping stuff in by airline, but yeah, the cost and the space issues.
John, you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, but pretty much what Greg just said is that the costs on air shipments have gone up immensely because there are not flights internationally, as was the norm pre-COVID. The space is somewhat limited, right? And then you're also seeing, just like a port, you're seeing things at airports which are being overrun by shipments. We've had air shipments at times, not so much lately, but at times where in O'Hare, where something would come in from air and it'd sit there for 30 days because they can't get it out of what would be equivalent of a port. So it's a challenge for air as well.
And they couldn't get it out. Why?
Just sheer magnitude of volume. They've actually covered and shut down runways because they've had so much product coming in from the air that they can't process it. It's the same as being 69 containers sitting outside in the water in LA. It's the same thing with air freight.
All right. One more question, then I want to get on to some solutions here because I don't want to dwell on the negatives all the way through. On the issue of pricing, obviously transportation costs are zooming. It's like a Harrier jet. Will that ever come down, or are we, actually to Jeff's point, are we establishing a new norm for pricing? And by the way, every shark out there is going to get in and up the pricing, like as we always accuse the oil companies of doing. But bottom line, are we ever going to return to a degree of normalcy with pricing? Anybody? Greg?
Once we see these prices go up, I just don't see them going down. And if the cost of fuel continues to stay where it's at, I mean, we're already experiencing surcharges from the manufacturers, which at some point we'll have to pass on as well.
That's what I'm hoping goes away, are those surcharges. As I mentioned earlier, before this got started, I just paid a premium for a new car because I had to have a new car. We were down one. I'm really hoping those premiums, it ebbs and flows, just like real estate ebbs and flows. It's cyclical. And so, that demand on that premium price, I'm hoping is going to ebb a little bit. But I'm not in disagreement with you, because I think once, there's new water level established in real estate, for example, people are just going to hold on to the real estate. They'll hold before they lose, a massive amount and resell. So I don't see those prices, taking a huge backward step.
And John, in effect, the pricing structure across the board, across all categories, is probably what, a 25 to 30% above pre-COVID, late 19, early 20?
Maybe just give you an idea on the container costs, and we're just getting ready to negotiate our annual steamship line contracts. They have gone up from, let's just put it this way, the spot market's sitting at about $18,000 a container right now, and up to
I'm sorry,
30,000.
18,000 gets you what? What does that mean?
18,000 would get you a 40-foot high cube container. It wasn't very long ago that it was a third of that. Okay. And you're seeing container costs all the way up to $30,000 a container. And I agree with everything that everybody else was said. There's a new norm out there. What the new norm will settle at, I'm not sure. It's all about supply and demand. If the demand adjusts itself and hits the supply, so there isn't as much imbalance in the supply chain, you might see a somewhat of a downward cost depending on what's going on with fuel. But I don't think anybody should think that we're going to go back to pre-COVID levels.
Okay. And I'm seeing nodding heads all around. John, back to you, and then to you, Greg, as well. And I want to get your perspective on this as well, Jeff. In terms of countries, we import so much of our stuff, particularly in terms of the home, right? Furniture, accessories, all the stuff, the bathroom, the kitchen, etc. Are there certain countries, if we're buying, should we ask where the products are being sourced? In other words, can we get stuff faster from Vietnam and Indonesia in furniture than we can from China? So should we be looking at the source of the product in terms of getting it faster and more cost effectively? John?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of things. Number one, you're kind of seeing a trend line out there that says, you know what, cost is one thing, but availability is becoming more important than cost. One of the things that China has two advantages on, just to talk about China again for a minute, is number one, they've built their infrastructure over 15 years, and they're much more mature than many other customers. Number two, as somebody mentioned earlier, many of the components are still going to come out of China. So regardless of if you move your supply chain to somewhere else, you still may be in an assembly situation where the goods still, components, etc., come out of China. One of the things about these other countries, even the ones you mentioned, Vietnam, India, some of those, you have to be careful with the infrastructure because they do not have the generic infrastructure with the ability to ship out in all the huge ports and the things that China has. They also have some inherent labor challenges as well as expertise. They are not really sound in engineering, depending on the type of product you're talking about. So it doesn't mean that that's not a potential source. It's just a couple of things you have to watch very carefully when you resource to some other source.
Greg, I'll throw it to you, but as a buyer, am I concerned about port of origin or country of origin, or is it just a free-for-all?
It's been pretty much a free-for-all. We have seen some success. Most of the national builders in the U.S., let's say they use a GE or a Whirlpool brand, and we've had some success with LG and Samsung, which comes out of Korea. The availability is much better. So what we're doing is we're actually closing the gap. If we can't get a certain product, we'll fill it in with that. And so now we've got the builders at least looking at those brands just to close on their houses. Because part of the biggest issue is we get down to that final piece of that house when the homeowner wants to move in and we can't close because of refrigeration or a double oven. So LG and Samsung have been two good brands to fill those gaps.
Okay. Sandra, you're representing developers who are doing a whole luxury building, let's say 100 units, 150 units. So it's 150 of everything. How do they deal with this? What's their course of action? How do they cut through the wake?
Well, they do their level best to sort of see the curve in the road ahead of time and secure, reserve, but they're not done all at once. Alf, they're done in phases. So it gives us some time to sort of catch our breath and be able to plan for the next phase and next phase. But you are correct in that our phases have even been delayed Our deliveries have been delayed on many projects by as much as 6 months because of it. People lose their interest rate locks, and we all know that that's a very hot topic today. It's just reached 4.95%. So now they're coming back to the developers and saying, we just lost our lock. And the developers are going back to the suppliers and saying, we can't close on these units, and now it's costing us more to even close. So answering in the same way, they're doing whatever they can. The luxury product, I don't know that it's any easier to get a hold of. We represent a lot of luxury developments, and I'm sitting in 181 Fremont today, for example, and we have got a supply of, river rock that we use in our tile, and we've had to reselect another type that's very, very similar, and it would take a very discerning eye to tell the difference. That's a little bit easier than reselecting an appliance.
Right.
So I personally waited 12 months for a dishwasher in that remodel that I mentioned, and just reselected another luxury dishwasher, another nice dishwasher. So same thing.
Jeff, to you, if you could get all of the challenges down into one center cut, what would be the biggest challenge that your clients have buying through your showroom within the confines of this supply chain issue? Biggest complaint?
Well, I mean, really the biggest complaint, and this might sound trite, is the transportation time, because they've already waited so long, and we're trucking from the East Coast to West Coast a lot. But also we have manufacturers in Los Angeles. So that's a way to cut your lead time, because there's trucks going between Los Angeles and San Francisco all the time. And there are many, many very well-known and high-end manufacturers in Los Angeles.
So for you, it's a delivery time issue.
Yes, because I mean, we're used to the lead times. We know how to deal with that and how to finesse that. It's once you get it on a truck and they're like, where is it? And it's been taken 7 weeks to get things from North Carolina.
Crazy.
And that's hard to explain.
Sandra, what about for you developers? The common complaint is what?
Same thing, delivering and being able to close. And to piggyback on what Jeff said, I'd like to ask another question. I'd like to know if people are getting more accustomed to these delays and they're planning around the delays. It's part of our narrative on in our sales galleries that, and people are familiar with it. They're getting accustomed to it. So they're not quite, so irate. They're frustrated. They're frustrated because it's costing them more money. It's costing the developers more money. It's costing us more money. It, skews all of our projections, but we're getting used to it. And we're the same thing. We're just overshooting, what we think is going to be. If we think it's going to be closing in, 10 weeks, we add on another 4 potentially, just to set the right expectations so people are prepared.
Greg, what about you? Common complaint through your channels?
Well, there's numerous complaints, everybody wants their product, but what we've been able to do, and it's hasn't worked that well for us, is everybody's estimating that they're going to need their material in November, and the job gets delayed because of windows and garage doors, and then we sit on it for 6 months, which has created a logistic nightmare for our company. But we just tell people to give us a realistic time frame so we can have the product here, because now we're going back to customers and pretty much forcing them to come up with storage for their projects that we're sitting on.
Sandra's question, is there a new norm now in terms of setting deadlines?
There will be, with the continued issue we're having with just our logistical nightmare we're dealing with warehouse space, because try to go out and find warehouse space, to John's point, all these shipping companies have leased all this warehouse space. And the problem is you go to get a lease and it's going to be a minimum of 5-year lease probably on a facility. And we just don't want to sign 5-year leases right now, because we think it's going to get better within a year or two.
John, to you, I want to start getting into the positive territory now.
Sure.
I hate to be a bottom dweller, but let me be a bottom dweller for a moment. Where is the financial opportunity right now, given this new world of supply chain challenge?
Financial opportunity. Could you give me a little more specifics on what you're looking
If I
for
was
there, Al?
investing, if I was buying equity, if I was buying equities, if I was buying stock, which companies should I acquire? Who's going to make out? Greg just made a great point. The guys who are selling warehouse space are having a field day. Where else is there financial opportunity arising out of supply chain challenge?
Well, first off, that's a great point. 3PL environments are thriving, okay, globally. And I consider that to be something that'll go forward for a considerable amount of time. Number two, trucking organizations are making extraordinary profits based on what they've done in the past. And as long as demand stays the same, or slightly less, that could be an opportunity. And then, of course, we talk about the steamship lines. Just to give you a history on the steamship lines a little bit, is steamship lines in the past have been very tight margin, okay, over the years, last 15 years. What's happening now is they're able to charge more, and that's one of the reasons I don't think the new norm is going to go back to the old, but they're making extreme levels of profitability, and I consider that going forward. So in the supply chain, those are three areas that are most challenging, but they also are the most opportunity financially for continued growth.
Let's talk about some remedial actions here. If I'm Sandra or I'm Alf and I'm running into a blockage, and by the way, you pick up the phone to dial a 1-800 customer service, and you're going to get Bangalore or somebody who you're going to wait for 4 hours before. It's like dealing with the IRS on the phone. It's of no help. So how do I navigate this? Particularly if I'm representing my clients, how do I cut through the pain? How do I cut through the obstacles? Greg, let's start with you.
Boy, I think better planning would help. I mean, we need realistic timeframes from the builders. I think I'll go back to everybody's estimating they're going to finish their project in a certain time frame, and it's 6 months after that. So from our perspective, we need better planning. Unfortunately, it's so busy, and I think there's so many new superintendents on a lot of these projects. They really don't know how to plan out a project. So we're just looking for realistic timeframes, and then we can work around that.
So time your project with a laser gun.
Yeah,
Sandra.
We're at the mercy of those people that are timing, the delivery of these. So, we can always.
What's worked for you?
I'm sorry?
What's worked for you? I mean, your Compass Marketing Group, you know which developers who know how to cut the corner.
Right. We have some new developers that this is all they've known, Alf. And then we have others that have been doing this for many, many, many years. And so, and both can work for you and against you. You can have expectations that were set on years ago, and you can have new expectations that or the new supply chain. So we just set the expectations with the clients first, that they may think that they're going to be able to deliver their product in 4 months, but plan on, 6, 8 months, depending on what's going on, and just plan on it. And then we do the same thing on the other end. We're selling to, a new home buyer. We tell them, do not take out a loan yet, do not lock a rate yet, because it would be the anomaly to be delivered on time. And that is our new norm. So it's really about setting the right expectations.
Jeff, what happens at you if somebody is frustrated? I'm a designer, and damn it, I've got an unhappy client. How do those people get remedial activity action from you or from your manufacturer?
Well, everything that we sell is made to order and bespoke. So it's being made by hand, and there's really nothing we can do to speed it up. What designers can do to ease the pain, and what they try to do, is to find items that are in stock, ready to go. They try to buy things off our floor, because, like as somebody said earlier, price has become secondary to availability. And so that's how designers try to get around it. There's really not much we can do when we're making bench-made furniture one at a time for a specific client. That's, it's in a custom fabric, it's a custom finish, it's a custom size, and it takes how long it's going to take. But they do, designers want in stock now. That's the first thing they ask, what's in stock.
They asked that question. Greg, back to you. Let's do a make-believe. I've just bought an appliance from one of your showrooms on the West Coast, and I'm unhappy with the delivery time. And by the way, the delivery time is not what was originally promised. Not nobody's fault, but it is what it is. How do I apply pain so that I get results?
There's really, from us, there's really nothing we can do at that point. We will give them options on product that's, going to be quicker to get. But we run into this situation probably every day, Alf, where somebody's placed an order for, here's an example. Sub-Zero Wolf has changed their columns, and they had to change their insulation on their refrigeration, which is changed the product number and put it out 12 to 15 months for delivery now. And they're going to stop making their new ones. So we've had to actually go back, cancel purchase orders, and move it to the new ones with the lead time of 15 months. And to be honest with you, they don't even care if the customer cancels the order and switches to something else at this point. So I don't have a good answer for that. There's really, there's a couple of options they can go to, but people that want Sub-Zero in their house are going to just have to wait.
Go ahead.
Is that people really are understanding this more than they did a year ago. And I've experienced the same thing. It's like, well, we can't do this. And when you really don't have an option, when you really don't have a choice, the best you can do is just provide a listening ear. Because there's nothing else that can be done except for to wait and offer opportunities that may be outside of that box that they were originally thinking within.
Yeah,
I agree with her. You really just have to listen to what they're saying, explain that there's nothing that can be done. And, we try to really under promise and over deliver from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Is an unhappy client, Greg, because of one of these issues, is an unhappy client better going directly to the manufacturer or staying with the retailer or the wholesaler or the distributor from whom they bought?
Well, they're better off staying with us. We're going to have a better opportunity of getting that product with distribution. And the beauty of what we offer is we do have distribution. We've pulled stuff off of the floor to close houses. We actually do loaners for some of our builders. There's a lot of things we're doing to help these builders close houses. We have manufacturers like take Miele, for instance. They will not even accept an order for a dishwasher right now. Bosch is the same way.
That was mine. Yeah. That was the dishwasher that didn't arrive.
You can't even order it. So there is no option for some people. The option's going to switch it to something that's available.
But Greg, the squeaky wheel always gets the oil. How do I become a squeaky wheel? Is it size? I buy a lot of stuff.
Well, here's
I'm a nice person to deal with.
Here's an example of that. So a lot of the national builders buy direct from GE and Whirlpool. And we actually have a list of builders that are now buying from us because we're a lot more flexible. Let's say you're in a contract with Whirlpool and they don't have double ovens, but I can get a GE double oven. Whirlpool's not going to go get them a GE double oven. So we're seeing a lot, we've seen a lot of growth on the national side because we have more flexibility as a company. But to be honest with you, Alf, I don't think the squeaky wheel is going to do much good anymore. We've wore that out.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling very reassured, T.
Well, Alf, I'll fix you up. No
I know I can always say, let's call your team and they're fit. Let me stay with you, Greg and Jeff, if I may, just for a moment. A personal instance where I had ordered a piece of furniture, I don't know, 3,000, delays in the shipping, etc. God knows where it was coming from. And every time I made the phone call to the 1-800 number, I very civilly and courteously complained and got a price reduction on both calls. Now, Jeff says they don't care about price. I'm not too sure about that. Everybody cares about price. Can we get price reductions in this environment?
Not from
Quite the
our end. We just
opposite.
don't see it.
You don't see it, Jeff?
No.
Quite the opposite, no.
Quite the opposite.
Yes. Well, wood has gone up. I mean, foam is scarce. It's, yeah.
Sandra,
No.
John, you want to give us a national perspective?
Yeah, so inflationary factors and all these other cost implications are going to continue to drive prices upward. There's no short window of time when prices are not going to continue to escalate. Obviously the Fed has made some adjustments to try to cool the inflation, but it's not just inflation. It's what we were talking about earlier. Somebody mentioned it's product availability that's also driving price. So as long as the demand, whether it's domestic or whether it's international, as long as the demand and supply do not sync up, we're going to have price escalation.
I have a question.
Shoot.
And if we slow down in the purchasing, if the demand slows down, just one part of that, one piece of that, wouldn't that allow a little bit of breathing room to make some adjustments so it's not escalating at the rate that it is? I mean, we're looking right now at 4.9%, as I mentioned. The pricing for real estate has increased exponentially. So between the price and the mortgage payment, buyers are spending 20% more.
Right.
And NARS had started at 3% reduction this year. So taking a step back, and already mortgage applications have eased up. So that's starting to take a step back. NARS has adjusted their prediction for 6 to 8% decrease. So in some ways, there's an opportunity there for us, right? That's how I'm reading it.
Okay. John, you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say I agree with what you're saying. It's all about demand and supply. And quite frankly, isn't that what the Fed's trying to do? Is adjust the demand and cool the economy. That's got a double-edged sword, right? The one thing is what you said is it'll help on the pricing side because it'll relieve the pressure. Of course, nobody wants to hear there's less demand, right? So it's a double-edged sword. I would not want to be somebody that was predicting for the Fed.
I'm going to go around the board for a final round of questions. I want to ask each of you the same question. It's a three-part question. I'll start with you, Jeff, if I can. I want to just get a feeling from you again on the state of supply chain challenge in your mind on a scale of 1 to 10. 1, not a problem. 10, it's so bad I want to sit in the hot bath and open a vein. You get the drift. So I want a number between 1 to 10. Second question, and be realistic and be honest. When do you think we will get back to a degree of normalcy that's equivalent to where we were pre-COVID? Give me a year or a month or a date in your own mind. I understand it's a projection. And the third question, the most important one, if you were to give our audience out there a piece of advice about how to live through this ongoing pressure from the perspective of a showroom manager, what would it be? Let's start with the number between 1 to 10. Where are you on the issue of the challenge?
I would say we're about a 7.5.
In severity.
Yeah. What was the second question?
When are we going to come out of this and get back to pre-20 levels?
Well, in my industry, I think people, we rely on their discretionary income, and they've been locked down for 2 years, and they've been focusing that money into their home. So we've really enjoyed those last 2 years. As they start traveling again and spending money on other things, I think there will be an easing in our demand, which will also help our workrooms catch up. But that's not something that I want to say out loud, but I do think that's the case.
And this piece of advice to the audience?
Be patient. Nobody's doing this on purpose. There's nothing that can be done. There's a myriad of reasons why something's delayed or it's taking longer than normal. For us, it's furniture, it's high-end custom furniture, so it's not a medical emergency. You just have to wait a little bit longer. And it's a piece of furniture you're going to have, hopefully for the rest of your life. You really won't remember that extra 3 weeks you waited.
Sandra, scale of 1 to 10.
I think Jeff meant 12 weeks that they waited. on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to say a 7. And I think that 7 is going to be pretty solid throughout the rest of the year. 2020, pre-20 levels, normal, I'm not sure if that relates to supply and demand or, the real estate market, but people do continue to need to purchase homes. And I think it depends on, where you are in that food chain. Basically, are you buying a first time home? And if you are, this is a very, very difficult time. And I would advise those buyers to, just stay the course, just stay patient, because it all ebbs and flows, and there will be some normalcy to look forward to when that happens, which is really, your question. It's already beginning to, it's just at what pace. And so I'm, people who are way smarter than myself are predicting 2022 will return to some normalcy. I hope they're right in many ways for those buyers. But even the luxury inn buyers, their portfolios are being affected, so their discretionary purchases are, less important. And so, but I still am going to predict, probably 12 more months. And then any advice, I'd say put those patient pants on every single morning. And, as representatives, I would encourage everyone to underpromise and overdeliver.
Underpromise,
Set the right
overdeliver.
expectations.
Greg, to you, scale of 1 to 10.
I'd go with the 7, and I'm going to say 2024 because I think there's so many factors for it to get back to normal. There's so many different industries, the shipping, the manufacturing, the transportation, the product categories that it's going to take to get back to normal. And then some advice, if I was doing a high-end remodel, I would go out and I would lease, or I would have a garage, and I would make sure I have all of my product there before I do the tear out, because so many people tear it out and then they want to bring it in. But if they planned better, we could solve a lot of the issues that we're having.
And John, scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah, I would say it's probably an 8, heading towards a 7, but I think 7 is probably going to be about the level in 22. As far as length of time, I would say that, kind of to Greg's point, I'd like to think it'll be mid 23. That would be my best case, but I think it very well could be, like Greg said, later in 23 or even in the beginning of 24. Kind of a summary statement of what a lot of people have already said is, number one, set expectations for your customer. Leave, under promise and over deliver. Number 2, forecast well and get better at your forecasting. Number 3 is build in significant lead times across your entire supply chain. And number 4, which is maybe even most important of all, is have as much flexibility in your supply chain, whether it's buying early, like Greg said, or whether it's using multiple ports coming in from China, or having multiple domestic suppliers and doing substitutions where appropriate. Flexibility is really important, and you have to watch what you used to watch once a month. You almost have to watch it weekly.
Interesting. I have one other question. At the beginning of the program, I don't know if we were on screen at the time, Jeff made the point that the last 2 years were bumper years for the design trade. Very, very good years. Everybody was in the home. People were buying new homes. People were outfitting homes, etc. You've had 2 good years. And Sandra, you guys have had great years in the real estate business as well, particularly in the Bay Area. Is that going to continue? And try to stay Bay Area if you can. Is this positive impact going to continue to be felt going forward for the next 2, 3, 4 years? Are we still in buoyant times in terms of the home and what goes on inside the home? Start with you, Jeff.
No, I think we'll cool a little bit. I mean, it would be nice if we could keep our 2021 levels, but with all the instability in the world, gas prices, inflation, there's going to be a cooling.
Greg, what about you from Ferguson's point of view?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think outside of the city has actually been better for us in Northern California versus the city. But looking forward to the
That's
city
because
really
people were
taking.
selling and moving.
Yeah,
Mm.
for us anyway, we saw more growth outside the city, but hoping that that turns around and the future is that we see the city start taking off now for us.
But you're optimistic for the next couple of years.
Absolutely. Yep.
Sandra?
Greg, I was stuck in traffic coming into the city and I heard jackhammers everywhere. I'm telling you, the city is coming back. And for the first time, it was just great being miserable, stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
People are coming back to work. You know, we're already starting to see a resurgence and a return to normalcy. Restaurants are booked up. We have an inventory problem in single family detached product, but it is driving the attached product forward. So I actually am bullish on this year, seeing some good
Excellent.
positive changes.
John, I've got a final question to you. Everything comes back to computer chips, does it not?
Yeah, in a lot of cases, that's especially appliances, things like that. Everything's not like the old fridge where it was just, basically a refrigeration system. They're all computer chips, and it all does relate back to that. The computer chip situation is not going to significantly improve in 22 from all the intelligence I can gather and having to buy chips on a regular basis. I would hope again that we would see selective improvement sometime in mid 23.
Okay. Panel, I want to thank you very, very much for a great discussion. I was hoping to be a little bit more optimistic, but I'll take what you gave us today. I want to thank you, Sandra, Jeff, Greg, John, and also Donald, who I know is on the call as well from the Bath and Beyond. Donald, there you are. We got you back. Thank you for hosting us today. You guys are open for business, I assume, and you've got all the product in the world.
Yep. I mean, obviously making an appointment really helps for the showroom consultants to give you the detail and time that you need to look at things. But yes, we are open and welcoming everyone into the showrooms again.
Wonderful. To our audience, there will be a recording link for today's Zoom. Look for it. It'll come out this afternoon or tomorrow. Please check your spam folders. I get a slew of emails saying, where's the recording link? And sure enough, it's in your spam folder. Save me having to write back to you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, with 2 minutes before the hour, we are adjourned for the day. And again, I thank our panelists for an incredible conversation today. Thank you all. It's been a pleasure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Onward and upward.
Bye.